like I said, this loose vein is in there too. It's really weakened that tree. If it's a high value tree and you really want to try and save it, it's not going to grow a new top.
No.
If it's a pine tree. If you top it, that's it.
I just wondered if that was a particular type of beetle that would stay in the tops of these trees.
Yes, there are. That's
Down into the,
trees. Some of these insects, Ips does that, but these insects like certain size trees too. And you'll notice, and that's more when their population is more in control. They target certain size trees. When their population is at the levels that it's at now, they'll hit all size trees.
yeah, we're losing the big old
Yeah.
matriarchs right now.
Yeah. Well, let's see if there's something we can do to protect the trees. We started at the beginning as to why we got into this in the first place. There's just way too many trees on the landscape right now than historically there ever were. So they're stressed. So what we do in the forest, and on the Lincoln National Forest on 1.2 million acres, we have 140,000 acres that we can do commercial harvest on. So a little over 10%. We need roads, it needs to be less than 40% slope. You know, there's a lot of things involved into what we can access. But in areas that we have access to, we set up commercial timber sills to reduce tree densities, to improve the health of the trees that we leave. So that's the silvicultural practices that we use, and that's what I do. You go out onto the acreages and you look at the commercial forest and you diagnose what the stands need, and then we cut them to reduce densities. You have to watch your thinning slash because that Ips, that's what it likes, is that thinning slash. It'll build up its population in that slash, and because it's slash, it's laying on the ground, it's not connected to a live tree anymore, it's not going to pitch the bug out, right? That's why they like it, and that's why they build up their population in that stuff. And then they hit the green trees. So you have to be careful. We like to say, oh, you have to look at the timing. Don't cut trees because it's smell related too, right? These beetles smell injured trees, and a cut tree smells the same as a lightning struck tree or a broken off tree. It generates the same attractant to these insects. And we say, oh, don't cut trees at this time of year between, when the beetles are flying between March and October. Well, who can do that, really, realistically? If you can, you don't want to do it, you don't want to cut trees on your property till the winter time if you can do that. If you're really concerned and you see this going on and you need to thin the trees and you have a contractor there who can thin the trees, then you need to manage, go ahead and cut them and manage the slash. Don't stack green firewood or infested wood next to another tree of the same type, or those bugs are just going to say thanks and hit your green trees. This one I put in there because I know in Ruidoso, I live in Ruidoso Downs, and Ruidoso Downs we have watering restrictions. Unless you're using, I collect rainwater, and you can use gray water. So if you're doing that, and you have a high value tree in your yard that you really want to keep, the best thing you can do is water it, because that's what we're really lacking in the environment right now is moisture. So and don't just water right under the leaves. That's what that drip line shows, where the leaves end right here. You need to water out past that because those feeder roots for that tree go out past the drip line of the drip line. A good soaking if you're collecting rainwater or you're using gray water is the best thing. And this month really helped us out. Spraying, here we go. They sprayed them, when I was in Yakima, they sprayed for spruce bugworm, and they sprayed Bacillus thuringiensis bt. It's a bacterium, biological, so that sounds really good to everybody, right? It's natural. Well, it doesn't target just the pest, it kills all the caterpillars. So it's not just killing the tussock moth or the spruce bloodworm, it's killing the swallowtails, the checker spots, and any other caterpillar. So the thing also with landscape spraying, large area spraying, is it just buys you a little bit of time. So we don't recommend it for large acreages like on the forest, unless you're gonna use that year, it might buy you a year, use that year to do some of those silvicultural treatments to reduce densities. Otherwise, you've just spent a lot of money, you've sprayed a large area, you've killed a lot of non-target things, and it didn't get you anywhere because you didn't really address the problem, which is too many trees and not enough water. So the landscape spraying, if you're going to get out in front and you have an area, a larger area that you want to get out in front of with treatments, go for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it. There's other sprays when we get back down to small scale, your yard or your acre, that you have high value trees on that you really want to keep in there. You've looked, there's no boring dust, you don't see any sign of a beetle in the tree right now. There are some things you can spray. 7 is, I think, the most common one. It's carbaryl. You can spray it on the tree. We recommend spraying as high as you can get on the bole of the tree. It's good for a year. Spraying in the spring, because they have to not get in the tree. So you need to spray when the adults are still flying, and then when the adults hit the tree, that'll kill them. Sprays work for a year. So if you have some high value trees that you want to take care of on a small scale, spraying's an option. It's not an option in the forest on a large scale.
Are these sprays restricted? Do you have to have a license to get them? Are they restricted?
7, I don't
Or the
believe so.
parathium, either one of them? I didn't know if there's something that we could buy as homeowners.
But I would recommend reading the label, asking, making sure that bark beetles are on the label for if you're going to use some of these things. If somebody's coming around the neighborhood saying they can spray your trees, get a lot of information. Dick and Frank could really help with that too, I think, and let you know what's available, what's acceptable to be sprayed for beetles. But I know a lot of people are using 7, which is horrible. Okay, we're going to get off bugs. Good. We're going to talk about mistletoe, which is another thing that we see a lot of in Ruidoso. What is it? It has to have a live host. It's an obligate parasite. It's leafless. It grows on conifers. It spreads by an explosive seed, and it affects all ages and all sizes of trees. And we have a couple of examples up here that you can look at. We have some on a Ponderosa pine. This is the one you see around town, this yellowish kind of plant that's growing off of it. And I went in my neighborhood and cut a branch off my neighbor's tree of juniper mistletoe. So it's out there. There's a lot of it. What can we do with that? That's what it looks like. It's parasitic, so it lives off of from the water and the nutrients off the tree. So it weakens the tree. Another thing that we see is that we're seeing now is this will be in the tree, this will weaken the tree, and the bark beetles will come in and finish it off. Trees can live a long time with mistletoe, but it just kind of eats them up here. And that pine is what, that's really ugly, and that's what happens to them because of this parasitic plant. That's up close. That's after monsoon season, the end of those, the plant gets filled up with water and water pressure. It shoots out that seed, lands on another needle of another tree, and slides down, and will sit there. So the trees that you're seeing the mistletoe in right now, the trees next to it, and the thing about mistletoe is a Ponderosa pine mistletoe will shoot a seed onto a Douglas fir or juniper and it won't take. It has to be on another Ponderosa pine. Same with the juniper mistletoe. It has to get another juniper. They don't cross over to other species.
Is that the same with all trees?
All the mistletoes?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Douglas fir mistletoe has to be get another Douglas fir. So if it's surrounded by Ponderosa pine and you cut it down Douglas fir, it's gone. takes 6 years for this whole cycle to happen. And you can't see the mistletoe for a couple of those years, several of those years. So you'll go out and thin or take care of your trees and think you got it all, and then it opens up to sunlight, and then all of a sudden you see more mistletoe. And it's because of these latent infections where the seed was shot out and it's just kind of sitting there, getting established and maturing. It hasn't grown into a plant yet. Sneaky. And then we have a lot of it in the Southwest. Over a third of our ponderosa pine, and a lot of our mixed conifer acres. We see it in just about every stand that we go in on the forest. There's some mistletoe out there. It's always been out there. It always will be. Birds like it, squirrels like it, wildlife people like it. It creates those snags, kills trees, insects feed on it. So it's there for a reason. But in our managed stands, we don't like it in our managed stands. We rate trees based on how much of it's in there. Isn't that a sad picture? So we split the crown into thirds. And if only less than half of the branches in that third are infected, it's a 1. If more than half the branches are infected, it's a 2, and we'll give the tree a rating up to 6. It'll go up 1 mistletoe rating on average every 10 years. We enter our stands every 30 years. So if we have a 3 now and we leave it in the forest in our commercial stands, it's a 6 when we come back for a commercial entry. So you have to kind of think quite a bit ways ahead when you're talking mistletoe out in your managed stands, because it is going to spread. What can we do? Foresters do this. We send trees down the road. Because of the way mistletoe spreads, if you look, and because it only affects the same host tree, if you can go find these little pockets of it, and you take those out, and then you go 30 feet out and you cut the trees of the same species 30 feet away from your last infection to catch all that latent stuff, then we're just assuming that we've cleaned that up and we've gotten rid of the problem. That's what some of that looks like in smaller stands, smaller targets. You can thin it out of the stand. This also helps us just create fewer trees on the landscape. Thinning is good, but some of that slash, we're going to have to take care of some of that slash, or we're going to have imps in there. Sometimes if we have real massive problems, we just have to start over. So this is a seed tree cut, where we're going to start over with the new forest. We leave some seed trees out there, even if they have mistletoe in it. And then after the new forest is established underneath, the next cutting cycle will go in and take those infected overstory trees off so they don't infect the new trees, the new forest. And we can leave a few more healthy trees out there. We need to leave a few more trees to keep the seed source on site. We're calling that a shelter wood cut. It also shelters the site, so those big trees, those small trees are a little protected on the site. Helps the site, keeps a little more moisture on the site. Sometimes if you've just got a pocket out there, we're doing some group selection. Pine trees have to have full sunlight to germinate. You can't select through a pine stand and leave partially shaded ground and expect a lot of pine trees to come back. That's just not how it evolved. It needs full sunlight. So if we take out a pocket of mistletoe in a group, hopefully in a pine area, hopefully this is what we're shooting for to get back. The other thing we're really missing out of this system is fire. That's part of why we have so many trees on the landscape than historically we ever did, because we've taken fire out of the system. If we bring fire back in the system, it burns off those bottom branches infected with mistletoe. We're also hoping that that will help us control some of the mistletoe. If you have, this is landscape level that we're talking. If you have it in your yard on a small tree, prune the branch off. It's like the webworms. If you see this mistletoe on a branch, prune it off. Get rid of it and just watch the tree and see if there's any more that pops up. and you've taken care of the problem. If it's in a larger tree, and it's way up there, and you have small trees of the same species that you want to save, you're gonna have to get rid of that infection. Or it's just gonna keep raining mistletoe down on your small trees of the same species. And you're not, and those small trees that get infected will never grow into a large tree. If you have this mistletoe in the stem, and it looks like this, in the main bowl of your small tree, that tree's never going to grow into a mature tree. I know, I'm the gloom and doom today. Fitting day for that. Okay, white pine blister rust. This one is not native. This one came over from Asia. It was introduced to North America on the East Coast, came west, was discovered by Cloudcroft in like 1990. It's kind of interesting though because it needs an alternate host to complete its life cycle. So we've got the white pine, the 5-needle pine, and then we have the ribes underneath that you need to have to complete the life cycle of this rust. So it infects the ribes, and then the ribes reinfects the trees. And that's what it looks like underneath on the ribes leaves. And it causes a canker. The canker encircles the tree, cuts off those water and nutrient pipes we were talking about in the phloem and the sapwood, and it kills the tree. And those white pine trees are beautiful trees.
Have you seen any of that in the county yet?
I don't know if they had, the only white pine that I knew that we had locally here was over by Buggin. So, those trees are gone now. I'm sure it's going to be, it's in Arizona now. I'm sure wherever there's a 5-needle pine, I would be watching out for this. This is also, if you have it on the tip, if there's dead needles out on the tip of the branch, prune it off and get rid of it. If it's on the main bowl of the tree or the top, that canker is going to encircle it and it's going to kill it. It's here. So any 5-needle pine tree that you have, even here, I would be on the lookout for this rust. And it kills the tree pretty quickly. That's it for the PowerPoint. It's spraying. What kind of, you can't do anything with that. We're just losing those beautiful trees off the landscape. And that tree has a really big seed. It's a real important wildlife tree. What we're doing now, and just off the 244, there's an area called Bradford, and they collected a lot of southwestern white pine seed. And they took it and germinated it. They grew it in Dorena, I think in Oregon. They exposed it to blister rust, and the ones that survived, they have now replanted 200 trees back on that same site over by Cloudcroft. So we're going to see if we have some resistant trees, and then clone those trees to try and keep this tree on the landscape. Otherwise, we're going to lose probably most of our white pine off the landscape to this rust. But there is some resistance out there. So we're trying to capture that and clone those trees and put them back out on the landscape.
Is there something that will attack the elms?
The elms, I know the ones you want to die. Not that I know of. Yeah, I've seen that, some of that systemic. I don't know a lot about that. We used some of that ACE around campgrounds, high-value trees in campgrounds. I talked to the entomologist on how effective that was. He wasn't impressed. But if you have some high-value trees on your property, and you've researched that, because they've come quite a ways since I last looked into it. I would get some information on it. Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, they are pretty expensive. done some work with those ace caps, they're called.
Yes.
There's an outfit in Arizona, I can give you the email address that sells those. And they come in a package of like 6 bullets, I think. It's around $25 for a package. If you buy in quantity, you buy up to about 150, you can get them down closer to $1 a piece. I've got a little test on my place going, and so far, it's looking pretty good. I had 4 high-value trees up the side of my driveway, 1 Douglas and 3 white firs. I mean, God put them just in the right spots, you know. And they had entry last late August. We had a little fly in August and September. So I put the ace caps in. You drill a hole in the tree, and you put these little bullets into the tree. The emitter on the end of it puts the chemical, which is kind of a broad-use insecticide, and it puts it in the rosin flow in your pitch, which puts it up inside the tree. And that is one way. I'm not saying that I can save my trees. One of those 4 is starting to tip are browning, but the other 3 are looking fine. And the man that I worked with in Arizona, he's a horticulturist over there, he had saved a lot of ponderosa on his place. All of his neighbors cut all theirs down. He still got all his trees, but he knew what he was doing, and he really told me how to use them. And so that's something to think about. But anybody that tells you they can save a tree that's already brown, forget it. You've got to see early entry and see those holes, and that they haven't been pitched out. So, yeah.
What about the pheromone packs that everybody putting on their trees? Tapping 7 foot up of ground on the north side of the tree is supposed to give the right pheromone that the trees take up.
All these insects have their own chemical, so you have to make sure it's the right one. And here we have, like I said, several insects, different types can affect the same tree. So we use pheromones to trap the insects to count populations. So it does attract them and it will repel them, but you have to make sure it's for the insects that we have here. Not mountain pine beetle. If somebody's selling you something that's effective for mountain pine beetle, we don't even have that here.
If you have a big tree and one of the branches is starting to turn red, would spraying or cutting the branch help to save the tree?
Some of these insects do hit branches first. So if you don't see it in the bole of the tree, I would prune that branch off, either get rid of it, burn it right away, get rid of it, or
Spray the tree?
wrap it in plastic. And then the spraying, you know, we've kind of missed the opportunity for now, for this year. I would spray the spring here. If you really want it to be the most effective. When these things are either flying or when they're eating the needle.
So you're saying the number 1 preventative measure is to water your trees if possible?
Possible, yeah. Because that's what they're missing right now. That's why they're so stressed, because we've been so dry.
Is there any kind of feeding or nutrients that you could do to build up the trees that would help besides watering? Are
You know,
we missing that also?
I've read both. I've read don't fertilize, and I've read it doesn't matter. Have you guys heard either way about fertilization?
I've heard that it's probably not a good idea because all you're doing is stimulating the growth, which requires more water, so it adds more stress, and you're just compounding the problem.
So if you can't water along with it, don't do it.
So one other question. I guess what disturbs me is I see a neighbor or in the area and they're already turning on the ground and they keep, those trees keep standing. Is there any way that getting those to start turning out there could we save more trees? Or is that just kind of a fallacy of my thinking that, well, because those are all bad, that they're gonna try to find minor ground or what? You know,
Removing trees off the site is the best thing to do if you have infested trees in the area. Sealing them, wrapping them with plastic is the next best thing to contain it. Thinning to reduce the densities, to preemptively help the trees gain vigor, be more healthy. Also a good thing to do, but whatever you're thinning, whatever you're cutting, you have to manage that too. But yeah, leaving,
If it's the brown trees that are being cut down around you, are the bugs still in those dead trees, or they already moved on?
they have moved on, but sometimes they reinfest, when they move out, when they come out and they fly, they're looking for a new tree. Some of them though will reinfest the same tree. So that's why I'm saying, if you're cutting the brown trees down anyway, which is that a requirement, Dick, in the city to remove those dead trees?
Yes, we have an ordinance that says that hazard trees have to be cut, and that standing dead there's allowed 3 per acre. But we're encouraging people to cut anything that looks like it's been killed by bugs to take it
Get
out.
it out.
Now, there's one other thing that's going on in this community right now that, they're trying, there's a man that's got a microbe plant, and he's actually spraying trees with microbes. And the microbe, the way I understand it is the bug, as he chews the tree, ingests the microbe, and it tears him up and kills him. And so that's a non-herbicide type treatment that about 20 places in Alto have been treated with these, and we're fixing to treat some of them in the village. But he claims he's got a really good success rate of using microbes.
Is there science to prove that method out?
I guess it's being made now.
Who is it that has it?
You addressed that earlier, maybe you gotta go back to that. You addressed it earlier when you were talking about that being used up in the northwest.
Yeah, that was BT.
Right, that's what this is.
Oh, Bacillus thuringiensis. It's, that's for defoliators. Caterpillar type. I've never heard it used for bark beetle.
Who is it that's using, that's spraying? Who?
I have his card, I haven't been out with him yet, so I don't, Marty, somebody.
Oh, yeah, I know you, yeah.
Earlier you had on slides, you've got the picture up there that had the cycles.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any idea historically where we are in the cycle of this?
Hopefully we're
Infestation.
heading down.
I know hopefully, but historically or scientifically or?
It's gonna be based on food source and how many, which is the stressed trees. And if we get a good winter, because what's happening is we've had dry winters 3 years in a row. So the trees come out of dormancy, very dry. And what we need is a good snowpack and a good winter, so those trees are not that stressed when they come out of dormancy.
Do these bugs not freeze out?
That's the other thing, is we haven't been having cold weather, extended periods of cold weather. That does knock back their population. If you have extended periods of cold weather, that will knock the population down.
Sure, I'm kind of new to silviculture, but I was wondering, are all these species benefited by pruning, or does that practice leave certain trees more vulnerable to?
Well, pruning gives the same smell as any kind of injury. So I would be careful when I do your pruning and you can time it. I would prune after the bugs have flown.
But it doesn't matter what species of trees?
No. Prune, yeah, close to the bowl of the tree, so the tree can heal itself over. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned spraying in the spring. Spring is pretty long.
I would spray here, the beetles are flying, man. You know, usually we would say March, but it depends on the weather. If it's really warm, and we have another dry winter, I hope not, and it's really warm, you know, maybe you might wanna start looking in February. Because you wanna make sure that you spray those green trees that aren't infested infest it now before the beetles fly in the spring. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a new beetle that I've seen flying, or, it's an airborne type beetle. I've seen it by the hundreds to maybe thousands. Little dark green one with a red band near its head. It's 3/16 of an inch long at the largest. This isn't a tree beetle, I assume.